Hello, everybody. It's Leslie here. My sleepy little classic, Zazoo Plazz, here, August 15th, 2026. Did my mic test twice till I got it just right. I'll leave it alone. For my weekly Zazoo Plazz report. We're all ready. We're all zipped up, ready to go. Are you buckled in? Oh, we're ready to go. After this, I'm so hungry. I gotta go have my paleo hot chocolate cashew butter rice cake snack. But I gotta earn it. Oh, I think you're gonna enjoy this one. Whether you're new to the Zazoo Plazz report, returning, if you've been here a while, and if you're the one every week who gives me that thumbs up, thanks. You're the one person out there I think I know who you are, giving me that thumbs up every week. Big old stalking. And if anybody else wanted to give me a like, I wouldn't object, just saying. It's Leo season. Like, subscribe. Okay, there we go. I got it over with. I hate doing that, but whatever. Yeah. So there's a lot going on. Sun is in the, it's getting to the latter degrees of Leo. So it's kind of like, it's sort of automatic at this point. Leo starts off, hey, here I am, and then it kind of starts going, and it kind of gets into this sort of automatic thing where it's just courageous, and it just does its thing, and it keeps going out there, walking on the tightrope, doing tricks on the horse, and Madonna out there doing her thing. After a while it's like, okay, I can do this, and then keeps showing up, right? Because Leo, has the realization that God is good. God's got my back. I can do this. What's my next challenge? Give it to me. I'll take it on. I'll take everything on. It's that kind of confidence. It can be haughty if it runs unchecked a little, but like, it's the Assumption. It's the day the Catholics, and I was raised Catholic. It's the day. Now, this year, all the good Catholics are excused from going to church twice because it falls on a Saturday. So growing up, like, it was like, if it was on any other day, you'd have to go to church, like, for the holy day of obligation. If it was like a Thursday or a Friday, and then you have to go to church again on Sunday. But this year, it's on Saturday. They're like, they're letting you off the hook. You could just go to church once for the solemnity. Solemnity is like the night before. So, like, we good Catholics, we'd always, not always, it depends. Like in the summer, a lot of times, my parents and I, if we were down at our Rhode Island cottage, we'd go to mass the night on Saturday night so that we could sleep in on Sunday and have, go get bagels at the corner market and walk to the flea market. A lot of times we would do that. The other weeks we'd go, during the year, more often we'd go on Sunday. Although when I was little, we went on Saturday nights a lot. They used to have those folk masses, with the hippies playing guitar when I was a real little kid. Those were the boomers. That was my first introduction. That was my introduction to Woodstock music. When I was like 3 years old, Woodstock happened, which was today, actually, 1969, August 15th. I'm doing this on the 15th at 11:15. So, I mean, I didn't know. My parents were way too old for Woodstock. They were 30, 30, 31, 32, 31, 32 when it happened. So, my parents weren't, and even if they were, they wouldn't have gone to go sit in a field with, are you kidding? Oh, I just laugh thinking about it. My parents were very late silent generation. So, and the ones at Woodstock were mostly the early boomers, not the latter boomers, the ones born like in the late 40s, very early 50s. Those were the core boomers, you know, kumbaya and all that stuff. And they used to go to our masses, and I remember them with their long hair strumming on they thought that they could get teenagers to go to mass if they, did the folk group thing. And, then they kept having like the folk singers. Even when we used to go in Rhode Island, there was this guy, he was, like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 years older than me, but he was like, he took me out on a couple of dates, and it was the summer before college, so I was like 17. So, it wasn't illegal or anything. I was almost 18. But, he took me out. We went out for ice cream or, to see a movie or something. He was just mostly a friend. But he used to come over our house, and I'd play my banjo and he'd play his guitar, And he used to sing. He had a beautiful voice. He used to sing and play the guitar at the masses at our parish down at the beach. I think it was Mary or something, Star of the Sea or something like that. I think it was, or is it St. James? Was it St. James? There was one parish that was like Mary, Star of the Sea. I have to look that up. I think St. James was our parish down there. I think it was St. James. I have to look that up. I can't believe I forgot. But the church was like round. It was like a hexagon probably. But inside, you would sit. They had chairs going all the way around. So, and then the altar was in the middle, and then they had like this thing coming down, like the cross coming down from the ceiling with like a skylight. One time, I think we went with my ex-husband when we first got married, and they had. I wasn't going to talk about this. I'll never forget. So you'd go up to communion, to the center, and then you come back around. You go up the aisles, like a hub, like hubs on a wheel, right? Like spokes on a wheel. You get, and then you come back around, and you had to go. There were doors in the back of the building, and there were doors in the front, where we parked. So, one time he was with me, and of course I was, the size I am. I've always been this weight, this size, tall, skinny, and so we were going, and they would have different people, like sometimes they were nuns, selling bread or something, or missionaries that would go. So this particular week, it was the Little Sisters of the Poor, which was a misnomer, because these ladies were large. Or at least one was, and they were, selling their bread or whatever, or they were collecting money, or they may have had a little bake sale going on. And all I remember was there was this one linebacker nun. She could have run defense for the Patriots. She was large, and for some reason, I don't know whether we just kind of, I was coming back around. I was just going to slip back into my seat, toward the end. So we're going by, and the Little Sister of the Poor somehow whacks me, or I run right into her, and I go flying. And so he's cracking up. Did you have a run-in with that Little Sister of the Poor? She saw me coming, and she was, I gotta get this one. And I swear she almost knocked me out. I was taken aback by the little sister. And she just kept right on going. She just mowed me over like a bowling pin. She just kept right on going. Passing the bucket or whatever, passing the thing. She must have had some of that bread. I bet you had to go and buy it before she ate it. Go to hell. No. Okay, Zazoo. Keep it up. I'm doing the Lord's work. I'm just telling the story. I'll get to it. Sun's in Leo. Let's see, 23. Where did I start off with this? Oh, okay. The moon is in Libra. It's a Lilith thing, maybe. I don't know. I'm feeling a little silly tonight. Mercury's in Leo. Maybe that's why. Um, Venus in Libra to Venus. Oh, moon conjunct Venus. That's why. Yeah. Let's see. Mars is in. Mars is conjunct my natal Jupiter. So I'm feeling. I ran for an hour today. So. Pluto's, yeah, 3 quarters. Okay. So yeah, it's just stuff going. Sun and Jupiter are trine Saturn, so that's good. That's good. And Saturn is like the devil, right? And Sun, so it's kind of like Mary. We'll talk about it in the Revelations reading, but I'm not quite there yet. I noticed my little cucumber plant has a teeny tiny little cucumber about that big. If that's all I get this summer, it'll be something. I can, have a little freak show and show it for show and tell. So what happened was there was so much rain the week before. Remember I was talking about them washing the building, and how they left the covers on all the uh, doorbells. So turns out Monday morning, bright and early, they show up with all the hoses running in the back of the building, and I ran out there and I took my plant in, and all of a sudden, I hear. So they swept into town like a hurricane, did all the things in like one day, and then blew out of town, and they did everything. All the buildings are just beautiful. They're beautiful. I've never seen anything like. I've never seen guys work that fast. They must have had to run over a day because they missed, with so much rain. So I kind of thought that was pretty cool. I said, so I didn't miss it. That's why they had all the stickers. Then they took all the stickers off when they left. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, The tornado sweeps into town. And out. The Cowardly Lion. Okay. I'm trying to get it all in today, but there's a lot on my plate. I did a huge Facebook post, and everything. I've made so many connections in my head that if I don't get it all out, it wakes me up in the middle of the night. I wake up with songs running through my head. It's like an MTV all night network up there. So anyway, did I say everything? Let's see. Oh, I gotta make. I've been craving a ziti casserole it's kind of like a lasagna, but I use penne, hamburger, and I put it all together. If I don't feel like doing it tonight, I just got my grocery order today. This guy came. He had a little cart. He had one of those nice little carts. Good thing I tipped him. And he put he got all the bags in this one little cart. He pulls up, he unloads everything. Not one. I mean, the bags were perfect. Sometimes you get these people. I go look on my step and everything. All the bags are like broken. Half the stuff is like spilling out onto the step, and it's soaking wet. That was the guy the week before. This guy this week, he was good. Yeah, so, and I don't know if it's that when I tip more, I get better service, or if if I am motivated to tip because I get better. No, you have to tip ahead of time. So but maybe only the good people take the orders with the tips, and then if you don't tip, you get whoever's desperate. And then they like ruin your order just because they're mad at you because you didn't tip. All right. Well, anyway, that's something to think about. I usually tip, at least a couple bucks. It depends on, the week. If I have a big order, I'll tip more, if just a few things. Not as much, but whatever. I'm a nice person, so I usually do. So yeah, I did that. Okay. Um, yeah, yeah. So, all right. So we get okay, Zazoo. Get to it. All right. So yeah, it's the assumption. So I'm going to make some assumptions here today. Um, so Revelations chapter 11. It's the great vision. Whoever's writing this, book of Revelation, they're having a vision. Heavens are open. They see God's temple in heaven, right? And they see a great sign in the sky. We just had a solar eclipse and new moon this week in Leo. So a woman clothed with the sun, right? So that's Leo. It seems to me. Anyway, Leo, with the moon under her feet. So that's moon is all about the hidden things, the feminine, the emotions, right? Under her feet, sort of. So she's kind of she's ruling the dark, the night, right? The unseen, the intuitive, right? Because that's the realm of women, right? The hidden, the intuitive, the nurturing, the feeling, the yin, right? And the sun is the yang. So she's balanced, right? Between the yin and the yang. The yang is the sun, the yang, and the yin is the moon. So she's in between, right? So it seems like a good imagery for this time of year. So, and then it says she's got a crown of 12 stars, which are the 12 signs of the zodiac. I think could be the 12 tribes of Israel too. There's a lot of imagery here, right? So it says, she's in labor. She's, about to give birth to a baby. And we know that's Jesus, right? So there's this, and then this huge dragon, red dragon appears, right? And it's scary. It's this Satan. It's red. It's got the 7 heads and 10 horns, right? And that has something to do with, the worldly kings. The 7 heads of, like heads of state, and the horns, the well, Capricorn kind of is, the goat, traditional symbol of of Satan, and 7 diadems. So there's, worldly kings that get thrones, right? Kings. So in other words, the Lord of the earthly things, right? It swipes, a third of the stars out of the sky, throws them down to earth. So that's like looking for signs like meteors, or showers. At this time of year, they've speculated that, it could mean some kind of a planetary, shower of some kind, meteors or whatever. Okay, so Mary has the baby, right? This woman has the baby. We know it's Mary and it's Jesus, and the baby is protected by God, spirited away, and she goes to a special place prepared, in the desert, or she flees to the desert, it says. And we know that it's, they say that this is the baby who's destined to rule all the nations with an iron rod. So there's, they're predicting this, and it's like an end of times thing when Christ is going to come again. So these are all the images that people have tried to, interpret over the years. But I think everybody kind of has their own feeling about it, reading it. So it's pretty scary though. But and then there's this loud voice that says, now salvation and power will come in the kingdom of God, in the authority of his anointed one. So that's Jesus, right? Who's been sent for this purpose, and she's been, the messenger, the deliverer of this, this chosen one, this anointed, person that we know as Jesus. So, um, okay, and then the responsorial psalm says, "The queen stands at your right hand, arrayed in gold." Um, it says, "Hear, O daughter, see, turn your ear, forget your people and your father's house." Right. In other words, forget your earthly uh, ancestry. The earth, the things that tie you um, to your, you know, to your earthly self, your ego, right? And it says they are born in with gladness and joy, enter the palace of the king. So, um, what I found out today was uh, August 15th, 1876 was a day when the government, the U.S., made the Sioux, from the reservation in the Black Hills, the Sioux um, Indian tribe. They were trying to get them to give up, sell their land, which they wouldn't because they uh, they didn't believe that it was theirs to sell. Right? It was the place where they lived, but they were living on it, and it was sacred to them. Right? But the U.S. government wanted to step in and own it and develop it and exploit it because there was gold in the Black Hills, right? So um, so I guess what happened was years later, like around 1980, the government offered to pay the Sioux tribe for this land, the native tribe, the Sioux and the Cheyenne, and they wouldn't accept it, right? Because then they maintained that the government stole the land from them. But if they accepted money for it, then it would be like they would lose it. In other words, it would be reparation for the government having stolen it. But then they would not have um, it would be like they sold out, like they lost their land. Um, so so they didn't take the money, and now it's worth like over $1 billion. This money. My grandmother, who was French, was born in a sod house in that part of the Black Hills, South Dakota, in 1902. And it's funny because it was Acadia Day yesterday, on the Assumption. So the Acadia were the French Canadians, and I'm all French Canadian. But she was born, she was born on this reservation, right? Where her parents were French, and they came out there to, homestead, to claim a piece of the land and live on it, and it was harsh. So my grandmother lost her mom at a very young age, and Madonna's birthday is tomorrow. Madonna also lost her mom at a very young age, at I think a teenager. So I'm drawing some parallels here. My and my grandmother's name was Leona. She was an Aquarius, but her name was Leona, and she was so brave. They tried to make her go to school, stay with the nuns, but she took off. She took a train or hitchhiked or something and came back east and was cleaning houses, just to survive. At like 15, she ran away from home, and her father, he sent her there because they had like 7 kids, and he couldn't keep them all. I think a couple stayed with him, but he sent the girls away. It, she was the oldest of this big family, so all this stuff went on. So I was thinking about that and how it all kind of fits together. Um, yeah. So, 1 Corinthians, Paul says that, and I've read this. This comes up sometimes about Christ being raised from the dead, first fruits of those of the fallen. In other words, he's first in line, right? He's the ones who have fallen asleep. In other words, the ones who have died, right? All the saints. So it's, Jesus, and Mary was would be the first of the human, because she was human. So I used to get this image of her being taken body and soul into heaven. I used to think of her, rising, like in those plays where you see somebody on like like ropes, and they they like raise up into the like an angel, and they have them on pulleys. They just kind of go up. I imagine that that's what happened to Mary. She was just walking around one day, and all of a sudden, whoop, time to go. And she's just flying through the air, like I don't know, like the good witch Glenda or something. But like there's some kind of elevator or escalator, and she's just taking it. When I was a kid, that's how I imagined. But it's, more accurately that she died and was buried like normal, human. Her earthly self, but her spirit is, remains the closest to God. In other words, we're told, the church says, that we can offer intercede, she can intercede for us. So, Catholics or anyone. We don't have the monopoly over Blessed Virgin Mary. She's, everyone's mother. Can ask her for help, and she'll intercede for us. So she's the first of, humans to be, have access to be let in. So that's kind of what I was taught, um, because she was human, and she did undergo all this, preparation for her soul to be able to take on this mission, right? She didn't just pop down here. Her soul was chosen, and, she felt fortunate to be chosen for this role. It's kind of a big deal. It's kind of like, when you're an actress and you get a really big part in a movie that's like the best movie of all time. That's what it was like. It's like, okay, it's going to be tough, you know, but we think you can handle this. You got this. So she comes down, does her thing, and she gets her reward, right? She knows she was lucky to get that part, because, could have gone to somebody else, but she was the only one who could do it, really. So, yeah, so it says, it says Jesus will, it's this image of him, being, destroying all the earthly powers, right? Sweeping them away, putting all his enemies under his feet. And then the last thing to be destroyed will be the power of death over us, when he comes. At the coming, we're told. And we don't know when that is. But, there are signs, right? They're giving us signs to look for. Okay, so then the gospel. It says, now Mary is taken up to heaven. A chorus of angels exults. So Luke. So in Gospel of Luke, I guess it does say Mary goes to visit her cousin Elizabeth. My confirmation name is Elizabeth, and I was always close to to her, and it may be because John the Baptist is a they have a whole special day for him up in Quebec, and Elizabeth was his mother. We do know that. And my son, okay, so Elizabeth was the wife of Zachariah, and he was, I think, blind, but then he got his sight back, and she was very old, but she was able to have a baby in her young age, at her old age. So there was a lot of going on here, a lot of things that people didn't think could happen that happened, right? So Mary just like, she makes a beeline. She finds out she's pregnant. So she makes a beeline to her cousin Elizabeth. Now, I looked that up. They're saying, they probably were related, and it could have been distantly or close, but the word cousin, I guess, could be interpreted different ways. It, could mean they were close, or they had family in common, so whatever. But when she walks in to John the Baptist, in her Elizabeth's womb, she kind of does a little somersault, right? Because he hears Mary greeting his mother, right? So, so that's where she said, "Blessed are you," and there's where the Hail Mary comes from. That every good Catholic school kid learns from, from the time they can talk. They taught their, you go to CCD class and you learn your Our Father, and then you learn your Hail Mary, then you learn your Glory Be. Then you can make your first communion, right? And I taught my kids CCD classes for years. And, it gets so that you did, when I was at, okay, so my kids didn't have this, but when I was in Catholic middle school, 5th through 8th grade, and then Catholic high school, and then Catholic college. But even as a, little, they had us doing the rosary, right? You make your first communion or whatever. You get people give you rosaries. I guess my cousin's daughter is going to be baptized in September. Her new little baby, so that's nice. But they, when you make your first communion, usually not. Sometimes you get them for baptism, but it's more likely for baptism you get more like things like little angel things with your name to hang on the wall, or little like baby bracelets with your name, or little children's Bibles and things, or like little music boxes, little things to put on the baby shelf. But for first communion you get things like rosaries. The girls would get a white one and the boys would get a black one, or pink and blue. They had them in plastic, cheap plastic ones. But and they're everywhere. I got so many rosaries. You had like your one really good one, and it was like metal, and then you'd have the cheap plastic ones, that you could travel with or whatever. My mother always had her rosary right there by her bed, next to her tarot cards and little angels, maybe a little crystal, She had her astrology horoscope magazines under my grandfather's table. I write about it in the book. If you want to read more, buy my book. But anyway, so this is the whole thing. The Hail Mary it's a standard. Say the rosary and you have to say like 10 Hail Marys. You say an Our Father and then 10 Hail Marys. Anyway, so the Blessed Are You thing. So it turns out Mary, though, in this reading, she's rejoicing, like I said, that she got chosen, right? And it says all generations will call her. She says about herself, they'll call me blessed. What she means is lucky, like favored, right? That he would choose me, and she's saying, little old me. I mean, who am I? I'm his lowly servant, right? She views it as she's humbled, right? She's not proud like, oh, of course he chose me. No, she's saying, I'm humbled by this, and I hope I can pull it off. But she has faith that she can with God's help, right? But she was human. Of course she must have felt like, oh, geez, what did I get myself into here? It's a little bit overwhelming, right? But she's anticipating, that in years to come, God is going to do great things for her. She knows it, right? She said, and it's going to be as God has also, in the past remembered and favored the lowly and the poor, and cast down the rich and the proud and the powerful, right? So she has faith that God's going to remember his promises and that he's going to favor her, right? And Elizabeth, affirms this to her. She's mirroring this back and saying that's what she sees in Mary, right? So Mary stays there stays a little holiday, stays there 3 months. If you think about it, so maybe she found out if Jesus was a Pisces, he would have been born in like March. So maybe June she found out, that was 9 months ahead, and she stayed June, July, and August. Maybe John the Baptist was born around September. Who knows? So August, September. So this is interesting. Or she stayed 3 months. She got there in August. Then she, then she would have found out, and then So around Christmas time, maybe John the Baptist was born in December. Maybe he was a Sagittarius. Who knows? I don't know. But his feast day is in June. So that's interesting, huh? Yeah, that's interesting. So, well, anyway, I digress. Okay, so get to the song. All right. Anyway, Madonna, 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 Madonna. Happy birthday. She's 68 tomorrow. She's born 1958. So, she's amazing. All of us Gen X girls, we grew up. And when when she started out, I was in high school, like around high school, just starting college when she really made it big. 83, 84 was when I started college. So, we were looking at her. We were dressing like her, more so the teenage. But I was 17, 18 when she started out. So, maybe a little younger than that. But, she had that look that, and so a lot of us, she influenced our fashion because we had the little crop tops and the leggings and the little gloves, and everything was like lace in our hair. I had like lace bows in my hair and stuff. Everything was like cool lace and crucifixes, and she was just such a genius. She was not only talented, singing and dancing, right? She was a powerhouse, but she also was a good businesswoman, right? She had, she may have had creative clashes with certain people, but she noticed little details that people didn't notice, right? And that's where her genius what distinguished her. She was the mother of all pop stars that came after. Say what you will, Lady Gaga, she modeled herself after Madonna. Madonna was the original, right? The blueprint. And the ones that came after were copies. Say what you will, but they're okay. But in my book, Madonna is the first and the only. So, and she's stood the test of time. She's still reinventing herself. She's amazing, right? She inspires me. But we were looking at her makeup, like we were doing the big red lips and the hair, and it was all her. She was it, man. They may have criticized, the critics, they really weren't kind to her, She deserved, they did her dirty, a lot of those critics, but she kept going. She's a Leo. She's not going to quit. She was destined for that role. So, she's inspiring. So anyway, I figure I'd throw 2 Madonna songs out here. And then I know she just put out some new stuff. And I'm going to look, and maybe I'll throw in a bonus. If something really strikes me as appropriate, I'll throw it out there. But these 2 are from her debut album, self-titled, of course, Madonna. So Lucky Star was the first one, which, obviously with Mary and her crown of stars, I used to think Madonna was talking to a guy. She meets this, her ultimate guy, her, soulmate, or her twin flame, or whatever, who is, um, her lucky star, her, shining um, star. And so this one was released. It was released, I guess, in '83 in the UK, but in the US it came out August of '84. It was her first top 5 hit on the Billboard. Debut. They say it was the defining song of her early career, um, and I would agree with that. Dance pop, you know. So her brother, I guess the video, her brother is dancing with her, and it's just her. They're all in black on a white background. They're just dancing, and that's it. No pyrotechnics, no fancy, the more complicated videos came later, right? But the way she started was simple, and it was good. It was effective, right? These two songs. The second one is "Holiday" from the same album. And it's that time of year, relaxation time. So she wrote. I guess she wrote. I think she wrote both of them. No, she did write "Lucky Star," and I guess Jelly Bean Benitez, who I think she was dating or something. I think he's the one he remixed it for her because she had some conflict with her producer. Creative conflicts, I don't know, something went down. But it was from the nursery rhyme "Starlight, Star Bright, first star I see tonight," and it was said to be a tribute to her mother, her late mother. So "Holiday" came out September 7th of '83. Yes, it to number 1 on the dance club charts, and up to 16 on the Billboard 100, which I thought our songs would have been higher than that, but I guess that's all it did. But yeah, it's very appropriate. I mean, Madonna and her songs having to do with the Madonna, of course, for whom she's named. That's, it was obvious to me. She went to Catholic school. She was a cheerleader. I went to Catholic school. I was a cheerleader. I feel like I have like a special bond with Madonna somehow, and the fact that she was so brave about, like just coming out and doing shocking stuff, and her name was Madonna. I mean, I think she deserves kudos just for that, just for, breaking all these taboos and everything. She inspired me a lot that way, because we are taught good Catholic girls don't go around doing that stuff. But really, I mean, says who? There's been this male dominated, culture for so long, and she just broke right through that. So, happy birthday to her. And looking forward to all her catching up with some of her new stuff that's out there. So, and also to, making a nice ziti casserole, because, Madonna's Italian. And she actually had her son Rocco around the same time I had my first son. We were both pregnant at the same time. I think she had her son a little bit before mine. I had my son in 2000, but I could be wrong about it. I'll look it up. So that's great. So go have a great week and relax and enjoy the last few days of summer. God, I don't have to go back to school shopping anymore. Now I can maybe go get myself a couple things. I don't know if they still do that tax-free thing, but whatever. Peace. peace, love, and all that stuff. And I'll see you here next week. Same place, different time. Take care. Bye-bye.